The European permanent residency game has completely changed, and most people are playing by outdated rules. Countries that were once welcoming have introduced strict new language and culture tests, while others have quietly become much more accessible. I've helped hundreds of expats move to Europe and researched all 27 EU countries for this definitive ranking. What I found? Shocking. One country offers permanent residency with just 80,000 euros a year in income. Another, they demand 50,000 in annual income plus huge investments just for you to pre-qualify. The language requirements are equally extreme. Some countries test you in languages most people can't even pronounce. If you are serious about obtaining permanent residency in Europe, this ranking will save you years of wasted effort. The next few minutes reveals exactly what you're really facing. Get this wrong, and you're looking at $10,000 plus in wasted application fees and years of delay. What is the criteria to define hard and easy? The first factor considered in this ranking is the length of continuous legal residence required. This ranges from just 3 years in Hungary to a crushing 8 years in Denmark. The second factor is language proficiency requirements. Some countries have no language test at all. Others demand proficiency in languages you've probably never heard of. The third factor is financial stability requirements. These range from 8,000 euros annually in one country to over 50,000 euros in places like Malta. And remember, I'm talking about permanent residency, which is often what you have after years living a country under temporary residency. The benefits of a permanent resident are usually bigger than a temporary resident, and in all European Union countries except one, before you become a permanent resident, you must spend years as a temporary resident. And by the way, if you want me to do a video about the easiest countries in Europe for you to obtain temporary residence, let me know in the comment section. If enough people ask for it, I will do it. So, with no further ado, time to start our ranking with the hardest country to obtain permanent residence in Europe. 27. Denmark. This is what an expat in Denmark told us. Open quote, Danish immigration is specifically written to keep foreigners out unless really necessary. I myself, with a Danish wife, found it quicker and less stressful to move to another European country instead of Denmark, despite the fact that I have advanced qualifications. End quote. Denmark stands alone with an 8-year residency requirement that makes it the hardest EU country for permanent residency. While most countries require 5 years, Denmark demands 8 full years of continuous legal residence before you can even apply. The language barrier is also considerable. While a basic requirement is the proficiency 2 test and A2 B1 level exam, applicants must also fulfill other supplementary requirements. For many who lack a long work history in Denmark, the de facto language requirement becomes passing the more advanced proficiency 3 test, which is at a B2 level. Such level requires years of intensive study and significant financial investment in language preparation. Denmark offers exemptions from work and income requirements for retirees, but the 8-year time barrier remains unchanged for everyone. Denmark earns the hardest ranking because time is the one factor you cannot buy or shortcut. Money can't reduce those 8 years, connections won't help, and even the perfect Danish skills won't speed up the clock. And by the way, I'm not saying that such harsh immigration laws are wrong. Every country has its reasons to have harsh or loose requirements. I am an expat consultant, not a political commentator, and not here to judge immigration policies, but to help you with them. It's also not a surprise that Denmark is also the hardest of all 27 EU countries to obtain citizenship, as I cover in another video. 26. Finland. The language nightmare. Finland's about to make permanent residency even harder with new laws coming January 2026. They are extending the residence period from 4 to 6 years and adding mandatory language requirements that didn't exist before. The language barrier is also brutal. You must achieve B1 level in Finnish, one of Europe's most difficult languages for English speakers. Finnish belongs to the Finno-Ugric language family, completely unrelated to Germanic or Romance languages, and that is more widespread in Siberia than in Europe. You can opt for the easier Swedish test instead, but B1 level in any language requires multi-year commitment and intensive study. New mandatory work history requirements will eliminate many retirees. To apply to a permanent residence, you need 2 years of work history without relying on social assistance. Additionally, the financial threshold for a permanent residence in Finland is significantly higher than many believe. For non-working applicants, the requirement in the Helsinki area is 1,210 euros net per month, 14,520 euros per year, while most work permits require a minimum gross salary of 1,600 euros per month, 19,200 euros per year as of 2025. Fast-track options exist at 40,000 euros annually, but that's unrealistic for most retirees. And by the way, if you enjoy our database research-driven videos that we put a lot of work to do, I would be glad if you could click on the like and subscribe button. It will be such a great help for us. 25. Slovakia. Starting July 15, 2025, they implemented mandatory A2 Slovak language requirements for long-term residence permits. Until then, Slovakia had zero language requirements, making it one of Europe's most accessible options. This timing created chaos for people already planning applications. You have months to either rush your current application or start learning Slovak. A2 level means handling basic conversations and routine tests, not just tourist phrases, and Slovak belongs to the Slavic language family, presenting real challenges for English speakers. On the bright side, the financial requirements remain attractive at just 273 euros per month or 3,287 annually, but some pathways require business ownership with over 5,000 euros annual profit. There is no simple passive income visa for retirees, and additionally, Slovakia requires 5 years of residence before accepting your application to a permanent residence. 24. Estonia. Estonia requires you to learn one of Europe's most unique language families before you can even think about permanent residency. Like Finnish, Estonian belongs to the Finno-Ugric family, completely unrelated to English, German, or Romance languages. This means zero familiar words or grammar patterns to help you learn. The B1 requirement is not just conversational Estonian. You need advanced proficiency for complex topics like work discussions, detailed explanations of experiences, and connected text on familiar subjects. Finding quality Estonian language materials and teachers outside Estonia is hard. While online resources exist, the scarcity of structured courses and qualified instructors significantly slow your progress, and the integration requirement goes beyond language. You must prove deep cultural integration through community participation, demonstrating understanding of Estonian history and customs. The financial requirement is discretionary, based on proving permanent legal income on a case-by-case basis, rather than a specific published amount. 23. Netherlands. The Netherlands has turned permanent residency into a comprehensive life exam that tests far more than basic integration. The civic integration exam, known as the Inburgeringsexamen, evaluates both A2 Dutch language skills and extensive knowledge of Dutch society, culture, and history. While A2 Dutch seems manageable compared to B1 requirements elsewhere, the civic knowledge component is extensive. You must demonstrate understanding of Dutch societal norms, cultural practices, and historical events. Requirements tied to national minimum wage eliminate many digital nomads or retirees without Dutch pensions. You need substantial income to meet these thresholds. As of 2025, you need to prove a gross monthly income of approximately 2,437 euros for a full-time worker. There is no specific retiree visa, so you must find alternative routes to even start the 5-year residency clock. One curious thing about the Netherlands is that they are also the hardest among the 27 EU countries to obtain citizenship by descent. 22. Germany. Germany offers fast-track options for some applicants, but creates significant obstacles for others. The system heavily favors skilled workers and German university graduates over digital nomads or retirees seeking permanent residency. EU blue card holders can apply after just 21 months with B1 German proficiency or 27 months with A1 German. German university graduates can also apply after only 2 years of working. The B1 German requirement means intermediary language skills, plus passing the Life in German integration test. B1 levels require solid grammar mastery and effective communication in everyday situations. It might sound difficult, but with the right tools, it's perfectly doable. Lingui is the secret weapon for learning German and other European languages that I recommend to my clients. The app uses authentic German content from day one, so you are learning real German, not textbook phrases, and it makes learning a new language really fun. I've left the link in the comment section, but you can also scan this QR code to access it. The Life in Germany test assesses knowledge of German legal and social systems, essentially a citizenship-style exam that adds another layer of complexity. Digital nomads and retirees face a major disadvantage compared to employment-based routes. They need the standard 5-year residency requirement plus 16 months of pension contributions. There is no dedicated passive income visa forcing nomads and retirees to prove substantial savings or pensions, either assets of 216,000 euros or a private pension of 1,504 euros per month. That's a huge amount, especially when we compare with the much lower requirements of the next countries in this list. 21. Croatia. Croatia requires B1 Croatian proficiency before you can obtain permanent residency. Since Croatian is not an easy language, this places Croatia among the most linguistically demanding countries for long-term residence. B1 means you can handle fast-paced conversations and written texts in Croatian. The text measures multiple components: listening, reading, writing, and grammar, and speaking. The language test includes Croatian culture and history knowledge, adding another preparation layer. You must study Croatian cultural practices, historical events, and societal norms alongside language acquisition. Limited international resources for learning Croatian to B1 level create significant preparation challenges. The 750 to 800 euros monthly requirement for permanent residence is not low, but not among the highest either. 20. Slovenia. Slovenia just changed the rules in November 2024, catching many people mid-process with their permanent residency applications. Until November 1st, 2024, Slovenia had zero language requirements for permanent residency. Now you need A2 level certification before approval. The retroactive application meant existing applicants suddenly met language standards that did not exist when they began the process. Slovenia shares similarities with Croatian, but has unique complexities that make A2 certification challenging, despite A2 still being considered a basic level. The South Slavic language features complex grammar and unique phonetic structures that create real learning difficulties for English speakers. 19. Poland. Starting with the language, Poland demands B1 level, and Polish is one of the more complex Slavic languages. By some measures, it is the most difficult of all Slavic idioms. Polish grammar includes sudden cases and complex verb aspects that determine whether actions are completed or ongoing. You need official certification through Polish government testing to prove your B1 proficiency. Most people need 2 to 3 years of intensive study to reach B1 Polish from zero. I learned Polish. It took me 5 years to reach a conversational level. Yes, it is that hard. The income threshold officially requires more than 1,010 zlotys monthly. However, the office responsible for issuing permanent residencies might delay or reject people who don't have an income of at least 4,666 zlotys per month, close to $1,300. And those are values for 2024. They usually raise these values every year. Now we entered the countries where it's difficult to obtain a permanent residence. The next ones have increasingly easier language requirements, and in some cases, they have no language requirement whatsoever. But before I review it, I have some really good news. My Expat Wealth and Lifestyle Compass, valued at $134, is yours free for a limited time. Receive our 74-page analysis of affordable cities in Spain, Italy, and France, our guide for zero-income tax countries that can save you up to $19,422, and the checklist that prevents costly mistakes. Don't let your chances go away. Scan this QR code now and join us for free. 18. Romania. Romania takes a unique approach to language assessment. No formal test, just a conversation with an immigration office during your application process. This sounds easier than studying for standardized exams, but creates unpredictability that many find more stressful than formal testing. Officer discretion means standards can vary significantly between different immigration offices and individual officers. One officer might accept basic conversational skills, while another demands more advanced proficiency. The satisfactory level requirement is not tied to specified common European framework levels, leaving room for interpretation. How do you study for a subjective conversation? There is no curriculum, practice tests, or clear benchmarks to guide your preparation. You must develop the practical conversational skills without knowing exactly what the officer expects during your assessment. Financial requirements are tied to the national minimum wage, approximately 750 euros per month in 2024, that create moving targets that change with economic conditions. Romania proves that informal requirements can be as challenging as formal ones due to uncertainty. The absence of standardized tests introduces unpredictability. 17. Luxembourg. Luxembourg requires proficiency in Luxembourgish, a language spoken by fewer than 400,000 people worldwide. This creates an immediate barrier since most people have never encountered this Germanic language. The Spruhen test demands A2 speaking and B1 listening in Luxembourgish. Daily life involves French, German, and Luxembourgish in a trilingual environment. Since Luxembourg is in the heart of the Benelux, you must navigate multiple languages in various contexts, with Luxembourgish essential for full integration despite French and German being widely spoken. Finding learning materials and qualified teachers for Luxembourgish proves extremely difficult. The scarcity of resources makes it challenging to acquire necessary language skills, since the language is not taught internationally. Financial requirements tied to the minimum wage eliminate most retirees. You need at least 27,000 euros annual income for private reason visas, reflecting Luxembourg's high cost of living and creating a significant financial barrier. 16. Malta. In Malta, English is an official language, so the island has a perfect language score, but the island has a different type of barrier that eliminates most applicants through pure financial requirements. The primary route is the Malta's Permanent Residency Program, MPRP, which requires massive upfront investment rather than time and integration. The MPRP requirements start with either purchasing property worth 375,000 euros minimum or renting for at least 14,000 euros annually. Then the total cost reaches staggering levels. 60,000 in government fees if renting, or 30,000 if buying property, plus a 2,000 euro charity donation, plus proof of 500,000 euros in assets. These additional financial obligations create substantial overall program costs that reflects Malta's focus on attracting wealthy individuals. The time to residency becomes effectively zero for those meeting financial criteria, contrasting sharply with standard time served pathways elsewhere. 15. Czechia. Czechia quietly increased their language requirement from A1 to A2 in September 2021, catching thousands of applicants off guard. The A2 level demands comprehensive grammar understanding and basic conversational ability, a meaningful step up from A1 tourist phrases. Czech belongs to the Slavic language family with a complex declension system that challenges English speakers. Still, Czech permanent residence is far easier than, for example, Polish permanent residence, which requires a B1 certificate, and the difference from A2 to B1 is considerable. The financial requirements create confusing calculations beyond simple income statements. You must prove sufficient funds based on combining the living minimum for your family. The total required monthly income is 2,022,158 Czech crowns, which is approximately 10,635 euros annually, and it's higher than men expect. And these values must come from regular, stable monthly income, not one-time bank deposits. 14. Cyprus. Cyprus offers two completely different paths to permanent residency, each with its own major challenges, but also with its own advantages that cater to different profiles. You must choose between a 5-year path requiring an A2 Greek certificate and proof of at least 9,568 euros in annual income, or immediate residency for 300,000 investment. The language route requires A2 Greek plus Cypriot culture knowledge requirements. A2 means basic proficiency, manageable for many people but demanding consistent study. The investment alternative demands 300,000 euros real estate plus 50,000 euros annual for an income proof. The property must be residential and you must maintain this investment through your residency period. The 50,000 euro annual income requirement must come from sources outside Cyprus. This dual approach caters to different priorities and resources, making Cyprus quite flexible. Not saying that learning Greek is easy, but well, it's doable. And again, to learn European languages, I recommend Lingui, which is super effective. 13. Austria. Austria represents an interesting approach. In exchange for the right to live in a place with high quality of life, you have a difficult language to learn. The B1 German requirement represents a significant linguistic undertaking that eliminates many applicants. Module 2 of the Integration Agreement also combines comprehensive German language skills with cultural knowledge requirements. The financial requirements, however, are less than one could expect. Austria requires just 15,000 euros 287 annually for singles and 24,000 for couples. 12. Lithuania. Lithuania requires two separate exams. You must learn both Lithuanian language fundamentals and constitutional law simultaneously. Fortunately, Lithuania requires only A2 level Lithuanian proficiency rather than the B1 requirements found in other countries we mentioned so far. A2 means elementary proficiency for routine tasks and familiar topics. and it can be achieved in less than 200 hours of study. The financial requirements are relatively low, at 1,038 euros monthly for work-based permits, or the alternative of proving a sum of 12,000 euros in savings, but they are tied to minimum salary standards, creating automatic increases each year as wage rises. 11. Hungary. Hungary is in 11th place. Might shock you because they have the EU's second shortest residency requirement at just 3 years, one of Europe's fastest routes to permanent residency. But, and often there is a but, 2025 brought a game-changing requirement that eliminates disadvantage for those who are not good at learning a new language, because Hungary now requires a mandatory cultural exam that must be taken entirely in the Hungarian language. This is not just a basic language test, it's a comprehensive examination covering Hungarian history, national symbols, and European culture, and Hungarian belongs to the Finno-Ugric family, completely unrelated to most European languages. It's probably the most difficult language in Europe. Finns and Estonians might disagree, but it's a close call between the three. For many, the low 3-year residence requirement becomes meaningless, when for most people it takes more than 3 years to learn Hungarian. 10. Greece. As we move up the rankings, obtaining permanent residence becomes increasingly easier, and Greece at number 10 showed this trend clearly. Greece demands just an A2 Greek language. The Greek language and alphabet present a considerable learning curve for English speakers, but A2 is still on a basic level. You need 24,000 euros annual income or can deposit 24,000 euros in a Greek bank account. This represents a fair price considering the advantages in terms of health. Greek residents have among Europe's longest lifespans, quality of life, and most importantly, one of the lowest income taxes on overseas income in entire Europe. And the FIP visa, often used by retirees and digital nomads, makes Greece very attractive. Greece also requires 5 years of continuous legal residence before you can apply for permanent residency. The moderate financial threshold makes Greece accessible for many retirees seeking a Mediterranean lifestyle with reasonable requirements. 9. Bulgaria. Bulgaria looks incredibly attractive with just 3,216 euros annual income requirement, making it one of Europe's most budget-friendly permanent residency options. This low financial threshold opens doors for retirees and remote workers who can't meet the higher requirements in other EU countries. Bulgaria requires 5 years of legal residence for a permanent residency, but there is a catch. They enforce stricter physical presence rules than the standard EU guidelines. You must be physically present in Bulgaria for at least 30 months during those 5 years. The absence of a language test for permanent residency in Bulgaria is advantageous for the initial application. You can obtain permanent residency without proving Bulgarian language skills, unlike most other EU countries that demand formal language certification. The 3,216 euros requirement represents one of the lowest barriers in the entire EU, perfect for modest retirement incomes or location-independent professionals. 8. France. France currently requires A2 French, but a major change is coming. Starting 1st of January of 2026, new applicants must demonstrate B1 level French proficiency instead of the current A2 requirement. The current A2 level remains acceptable until January 2026, creating a strategic window for prospective applicants who want to avoid the harder requirements. The visitor visa offers exceptional appeal with just 18 to 30,000 euros annual income range. This flexibility accommodates various financial situations from modest retirement incomes to higher investment returns. The shift from A2 to B1 represents a considerable increase in language proficiency demands. A2 focuses on basic communications in familiar situations, while B1 requires intermediate skills. Applicants over 65 years old receive language requirement exemptions, making France particularly attractive for older retirees who can bypass French learning entirely. 7. Sweden. Sweden requires 5 years of continuous legal residence before you can apply for permanent residency. Applicants must have an after-tax income sufficient to cover a standard amount for living expenses, 6,090 crowns per month in 2024, plus their actual housing costs. No language requirements exist yet, but there are proposed changes to implement new requirements like A2 level of Swedish. Another curious point about Sweden is that they are the easiest country in Europe to obtain citizenship, one of the few that does not require any language test. Yet. 6. Latvia. Latvia offers one of the EU's lowest financial thresholds at just 8,160 euros annually, making it very accessible for budget-conscious retirees and remote workers. This represents one of Europe's most affordable permanent residency pathways. However, some other requirements make this bargain a little more complex than it appears at first glance. You cannot exceed 12 months of total absence during the 5-year period, making frequent travel complicated and requiring careful planning for any time spent outside Latvia. Latvian belongs to the Baltic language family, with complex grammatical structures that differ greatly from Romance or Germanic languages. Fortunately, A2 is a relatively basic level, so it's doable. Therefore, both the A2 Latvian language and the €8,000 annual income requirement are accessible demands, granting Latvia the 6th place. 5. Spain. Spain's non-lucrative visa has become legendary among retirees seeking European residency. The visa offers a well-defined pathway with established processes that thousands have successfully navigated. The 28,000 annual income requirement for the primary applicant plus 7,200 per dependent adds up quickly for families, but remains manageable for many retirees with solid pension income. No formal language test exists for residency applications, creating flexibility that eliminates testing stress. However, integration proof is required, and officials evaluate your Spanish language ability during the assessment process. While A2 Spanish is not mandatory, lacking basic Spanish skills could negatively impact your application. The non-lucrative visa provides clear income criteria, structured renewal periods, and predictable timelines that make planning straightforward. 4th place, Italy. The Italian elective residency visa attracts retirees with a straightforward approach to permanent residency applications. Italy requires 5 years of continuous legal residency before you can apply, and the 31,000 annual income requirement for singles and 38,000 for couples represents significantly higher thresholds than neighboring countries. This passive income must come from pensions, investments, or rental income, not employment or remote work. Another pro is that Italian is a relatively easy language to learn, and they just require A2 level. Achieving A2 level requires basic competency in everyday situations and direct exchange on familiar topics. The easier language requirements and the Mediterranean lifestyle compensate for the bureaucracy that you will certainly face. 3. Portugal. Portugal's D7 visa has become the gold standard for retirees seeking European residency. The country requires 5 years of continuous legal residence before you can apply, and the D7 visa offers a well-defined pathway that thousands have successfully navigated. The €10,000 annual passive income requirement seems almost too good to be true when compared to other European options. The requirement of just A2 level of Portuguese is also a significant plus for English speakers. Portuguese belongs to the Romance language family, sharing some vocabulary and grammatical patterns that make its learning easier. Brazilian resources, including movies, music, and online content, provide abundance of practice materials that are not available for smaller European languages. Portugal also allows you to combine different income sources to meet the requirement, providing options for retirees with varied financial portfolios. Established English-speaking communities through Portugal make it easier to establish social connections. These expat communities offer practical guidance, social connections, and assistance with bureaucratic processes that smooth your integration journey. 2nd place, Ireland. Ireland has no language barrier for Americans, Canadians, or Australians seeking European residency. No studying, no testing, no stress about achieving proficiency levels. For retirees and digital nomads, there is a challenge. The only reason Ireland is in the 2nd and not in the 1st place are the high financial thresholds that offset the language advantage. Retirees need €50,000 annual income plus access to a lump sum equivalent to purchasing a residential dwelling in Ireland. These requirements represent some of Europe's highest financial barriers for no-investment residency. However, if you have Irish ancestors, you might be lucky because Ireland is the easiest country in the European Union to obtain citizenship by descent. 1st place, Belgium. As almost all countries in this list, Belgium requires 5 years of continuous legal residence before you can apply for permanent residency. But no national language test requirement seems almost too good to be true in today's Europe. While most countries demand formal language certification, Belgium trusts municipal-level integration assessment instead of standardized testing. Local communities evaluate integration through practical means like employment, rental contracts, or community involvement. You need €793 monthly plus €264 per dependent, a very low threshold for such a developed country. Curiously, while Belgium has one of the easiest paths to obtain permanent residency in Europe, it's among the hardest to obtain citizenship by residence. But 2 very rich European countries have remarkably easy paths for expats to become citizens. Want to discover which countries I'm talking about? Check this video on the left, ranking the easiest EU countries to obtain citizenship by time of residence. And join my Patreon for the sources and charts from our videos, plus a chat so I can answer your questions. Tier 2 includes my top 3 ebooks on living and retiring abroad. Scan the QR code today.